Hi. In 20 minutes, I will try to tell you as much as possible about SAFe and the role of Atlassian and the Atlassian ecosystem in SAFe. Wish me luck. My name is Alex. I'm a consultant at Valiantys. I'm a certified SAFe Agilist and also a certified Jira and Confluence admin. The agenda for today is, at first, I will show the challenges of scaling agile principles. Then I will talk a little bit about SAFe and how SAFe helps enterprises scaling agile principles. Next, I will talk a little bit about Jira Align and how to align without Jira Align if you don't use Jira Align. So, in principle, agile development is pretty simple. You would have self-organizing teams. You would have business people and developers working closely together, working on a prioritized backlog. You have short planning and development cycles, and you try to deliver software as frequently as possible. And the primary measure of progress is working software. You also welcome changing requirements, even late in development. So how I would visualize this is you have short plan, development, and testing cycles, and you produce regular drops of working code. Now, those practices worked wonders for individual teams. So it feels natural to scale those principles to big software developments where the challenges of big software programs are even multiplied. But, and this is probably no surprise to you, scaling agile practices is quite challenging. If you have a bunch of self-organizing teams, how can you manage system architecture needs, which are too big for one team to solve? And how can you identify dependencies across teams if there's no person coordinating across those teams? How can you track large initiatives with multiple features across different teams? And last but not least, how can you take real-time decisions which affect multiple teams in real time? Well, there are some companies who say challenge accepted. I will first say some words about SAFe, and then I will talk about the products in the Atlassian ecosystem and how they help implement SAFe. This is an image of SAFe. For those who already know SAFe, this one is the version 5.0. It's still a preview. But there's a good reason I've chosen this preview, because it already looks a bit more organized. If you remember SAFe 4.6, it's even messier. What you might also have seen is that now the program backlog, the program layer and the team layer are merged together in Essential SAFe. And on the left, you see all the teams which are now organized together. So let's first talk about the Essential layer. On the Essential SAFe layer, you see quite a lot of things. At first, you see agile teams together with the product owner and the Scrum Master working on team backlogs, probably in Scrum mode. Then you see system architects, product management and release train engineers working based on a program backlog, probably in Kanban mode. Here you also see an agile release train which is somehow connected to a continuous delivery pipeline and which produces regular releases. So how does this all work together? what SAFe thinks as an agile release train is, if you remember the one agile practice, it's that you would have self-organizing teams. And what SAFe says is you don't have one self-organizing team, you would have self-organizing teams of teams. And those teams, SAFe, they call an agile release train. An agile release train is able to plan, develop, and release features which span multiple sprints and contain multiple user stories. Those features, again, are part of one or more solutions in value streams. And while a story is time-boxed inside one sprint, a feature is time-boxed inside one program increment. And during those program increments, there's the PI planning, where you try to find the dependencies between those features, because we have multiple teams who might have dependencies. Now, what's interesting is that all those actions or practices team do, just normal Jira software and Confluence cover those actions really well. Let's take a look at the team backlog, for example. How you would solve this in Jira is you would create a Jira project for each product you have, or let's call it value stream, and you create one sprint board for each team. And each team might contain one product or multiple inside the sprint. So in SAFe, now you have multiple teams, so maybe you would just need another field, like the team, to define which story and which features comes to the board of which team. If we move a layer up, we have a program backlog. So here again, in Jira, you could just create one program level project with a Kanban board, and there you only track Jira epics, or how SAFe would call them, features. And you see the epics have another workflow than the stories themselves. Now let's move a level up and take a look at the large solution and the portfolio level. Now you would think you could do the same thing for those levels, because if you look at it, the solution backlog and the program backlog and even the portfolio backlog, according to SAFe, they don't look that different. But because of some limitations of Jira software, it's really difficult to calculate and sum up all the story points up to the portfolio level. With pure Jira, you're limited to epics, and then if you want to create a level up, it's difficult to calculate those elements. Traditionally, you would solve these problems with apps from the Atlassian marketplace. But before I talk about them, let me tell you some words about Jira Line. So, what does Jira Line? You see on the bottom, it's a basis. You still have Jira software, Confluence, or maybe even multiple Jira instances and other team collaboration tools. So the team level and even the program level, they are not that affected. They still work with Jira and release great products. But what Jira Line does, it takes the data from Jira, Confluence, and the other tools, and it connects them up until to the strategic portfolio level. Jira Line, out of the box, they support SAFe, but also other frameworks like Less or even Spotify. And out of the box, they have rooms for all those teams on the different levels. And for example, a portfolio team, they would have a room where they see value streams and how much budget is allocated to which value stream. For me, the major two actions one would do in Jira Line is first top-down planning. So if they plan the roadmap for the next program increment, they can plan it in Jira Line and it trickles down until to the teams. And the other things they would do is make the work visible across all layers. So delivery teams know on which program, which solution, and which portfolio they are working on. This is an example of a room, how a room could look like in Jira Line. Now, this is a screenshot I've taken from the Atlassian presentation of Jira Line, because I myself haven't done a project with Jira Line yet, but we have at least one consultant in Valiantys who has done an agile transformation with Jira Line when it was still called Agile Craft. So, as I talked before, this here is a portfolio room, and over there on the left, you see the theme budget allocation, so how much budget is allocated to which theme. And in the center, you see the actual program increment and all the portfolio epics which are in there. Now, should you all use Jira Line? No, or it depends. Currently, Jira Line is more targeted to organizations which have 100 to 1,000 teams. And they probably have multiple Jira instances and also other collaboration instances. And they want visibility at enterprise scale. I'm sure some here are on this level, but not all of them. So, therefore, how could you align if you don't have Jira Line? Well, the first possibility would be with an app from Atlassian themselves. So it's Portfolio for Jira 3.x. It has been completely redesigned, so forget Portfolio version 2, it's completely new. And now you could do even before, but you can define multiple layers above the epics. And next to those layers, you have a visual timeline. What you also have is you can visualize dependencies. So these numbers you see here are dependencies to other epics or features, etc. Also, it has features to manage capacity. And what I find really interesting, now you can do cross-project release. So you can define versions which are not dependent on any project, which are completely separate, and you can track progress on those versions. Now, what if you don't want to have just one hierarchy and structure, but you want to have multiple different structures? Meet the app structure. And what sets structure apart to, for example, portfolio, is you can define multiple structures. For example, one structure where you sum up the stories for a program increment, and another structure which sums up the stories to a project or a product. Another cool features is how it's called. It's calculated columns. It's formulated columns, yeah. And there, for example, you could sum up the budget from each story point up to the portfolio level. So you have a little bit features which are similar to what Jira Line offers. Also, you have features about automation, for example, and synchronizations. Yeah, and it's also integrated in a GQL search. Now, what if you work in an organization which have classical projects and agile projects? In this case, I would suggest to look into Big Picture. Big Picture has a program manager on the highest level, and there you can define different programs. And for each program, you can activate or deactivate features to make it more look like a classical project or more like an agile. It's not a project, but yeah. So in this case, for example, I've activated a Gantt chart, and so you can have milestones, work breakdown structures, and all the things you would like in classical projects. And on another program, I've activated safe compliant boards where you see on which PI which feature is implemented, and you can also visualize the dependencies. For example, this feature here will not be developed in this PI because it's dependent on one which is developed later. And those were just a few examples. There are many more which help implementing SAFe. Even today, we will see an example how EasyBI, for example, helped implementing some SAFe features. And there are also other examples. It's finished though. So last sentence. I hope, well, I only scratched the surface of all those apps and SAFe, but I hope some of you are motivated to take a deep dive into some of those apps and talk to the other persons who are here. Thank you.